Some pretty interesting league-wide news today as Gary Bettman met with the media, an Ovechkin controversy that could happen in the next few weeks, and a Sabre-themed bracket as it is tournament time. All ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. It does include checking us out on our YouTube channel where you can watch the show, like and subscribe us there. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on an off day for the Buffalo Sabres. They are off until tomorrow when they will be playing at the Utah Hockey Club, who have nickname drama right now and who they're going to be calling themselves after this year. We've got more expansion talk in the NHL. A lot to get to on Gary Bettman's visit with the media today. Some league-wide topics and a Sabre bracket that I'm going to introduce coming up in the third segment of today's show that will be running on social media over the next month as the NCAA tournament occurs as well. It'll coincide with the timing on that. And it's simply going to be, who'd you like? Who'd you like on this hockey team over the years? That is going to be what we're getting into. I'll explain more in detail, the name of it, and what we're shooting for on this thing. Coming up a little bit later on today's show. If you would like to follow us on social media, I'm there at Sneaky Joe Sports on Twitter, at Locked On Sabres. And then, of course, the Blue Sky account is at Sneaky Joe. Sneaky Joe. Yeah, just Sneaky Joe. Sneaky Joe Sports on Twitter, at Sneaky Joe on Blue Sky. Sneaky Joe not available on Twitter. Some defunct account that hasn't tweeted in 10 years has it. And there is no way to get it. Trust me, I've tried. So anyways, there's a lot to get to on today's show. Of course, the text club as well. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. And I was talking back and forth with one listener in that today about the upcoming event that the Buffalo Sabres are having, which is that they are going to put Kevin Adams and Lindy Ruff in front of season ticket holders, and you can ask questions to the GM and the coach. However, and this shouldn't surprise you, because if I were working in PR or if I were doing media relations or anything hosting that event that the Sabres are going to have with the coach and the GM, given the state of the team, obviously they're going to be asking for questions ahead of time and siphoning out ones that they're not going to have the GM answer in front of people. You might think that that is soft, and I understand why wholeheartedly, trust me, but it's going to be a very, I think, protected event of the GM and the coach. If it was just open mic, could get ugly. Maybe you'd say that's a good thing and that's what the fans deserve, and I would say that. Fans deserve open mic, especially with the general manager, to ask whatever questions they want and have a back and forth. But the Sabres did put out the email that you got to submit your questions beforehand, and this one texter I was going back and forth with, he submitted his question, and he's like, I don't expect to hear mine asked. I don't. And I would bet a lot of fans are going to feel that way. So that's coming up, and we'll see if anything interesting comes of that, whether or not, we do get anything out of it. Again, it's only season ticket holders, and I'm not even sure the exact date of it. I was looking through the email. I didn't see that. Screenshots of it because I didn't get the actual email. So we'll see. That will be probably in the next couple of days or weeks. And if something newsworthy comes out of it, we'll talk about it here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. So we'll get to the Sabres. They are in Utah. And as far as I know, at this point at record time here on Wednesday afternoon. They have not practiced, but they are there. They're in Utah. I saw some pictures of the arena today. Sabre Media is there for the first time. The Sabres have never played in Utah, but we'll talk more about that matchup tomorrow. There's also news about the Utah hockey name. They're down to 2. One of them is Hockey Club. And again, that's something we'll get to tomorrow when we preview the game. I want to get some league-wide stuff today, though, as the Sabres are in Utah. First meeting against a new team, not an expansion team, relocated team from the Arizona area. Now, the Hockey Club in Utah. There could be another expansion team on the way. Gary Bettman meeting with the media today, and this did not, I don't think, come straight from his press conference, but it was reported today that there's a new city looking for a team. Now, Bettman has met with Houston officials and I think the Rockets owner. So there has been some interest in Houston, but that has not gone further than that at this point. Obviously, Quebec City has been asking for a long time to get the Nordiques back. They even built an NHL facility. If I remember right, that's about a 10-year-old building, the Videotron Center in Quebec. It is the 20th largest indoor arena in North America. It was completed and opened in 2015. It is the third largest arena in North America that does not have an NHL team. That's an interesting fact there, because I want to say one of those is going to be in Mexico, maybe, and I wonder what else would be above it. Here you go. Arenas bigger than Videotron Center in Quebec. Dallas, no. Pittsburgh, no. Washington, no. Ottawa and Edmonton, no. Cleveland. Okay, there's one. Cleveland has a bigger arena. There's Buffalo, by the way, the 9th biggest arena in North America. A little surprising there. And I only see one. Maybe it's the second. Maybe that's not an updated fact. But I only see Cleveland as a bigger arena. One. So anyways, sorry about that. So Videotron Center. Point being, Quebec, and that's a city that's wanted an arena for a team for a long time. They even built the arena to try to get them there, and it didn't happen. It was their goal. There's been, way back 20 plus years ago, Portland was one of the cities that was trying to steal the Sabres away. That's a long time ago, though. New Orleans. Long story short, New Orleans is the city that is getting interest. State officials from Louisiana meeting with the NHL about a potential expansion team in New Orleans. It's not a city I have ever thought about for the National Hockey League. I even wrote a couple of years ago at WGR550.com. I wrote up my big promotion relegation plan for the NHL. I love promotion relegation in sports. There's none of it in North America. I think it would be cool if the NHL did it, but kind of adjusted. I'm not trying to do NHL to AHL. My idea was expand to get the NHL to 40 teams, 40, split it into 2, and you have 2 20-team leagues with promotion and relegation. And there are a lot more details to that. In fact, like the top team in the second tier would actually get entry into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So everyone would technically have a shot at the Cup at the beginning of the year. You would have top 3 go up, bottom 3 go down. It's all NHL facilities, all NHL arenas. Obviously, that's kind of a pipe dream, but that's only for the promotion relegation part. The 40-team part might not be a pipe dream, because if Houston gets a team someday and maybe they start taking Quebec seriously, maybe not. Here's New Orleans now getting interest. I mean, that's 2 or 3 right there. And, you could always do a second team in Toronto. They're already at 32, 33, 34, 35. I mean, it's not hard to see them seeing a 35-team league within the next couple of years. Atlanta, by the way, Atlanta's the other obvious one that Kevin Weeks has been reporting about, that the NHL wants to go back. And Bettman always wants to go back to Arizona. So honestly, maybe it's more like 37 if they were to get all these cities to have teams. So that was one thing to come out of today. The other, the presidents of US and Russia, they talked, and of the non-political things to come out of that, which were not many, they apparently talked about a USA versus Russia hockey series. We just had the Four Nations international games, right? Russia has been ousted from international hockey ever since their invasion of Ukraine. This is a door opening for the Russian international hockey team that, again, has not really been much of a participant in recent years. They did not participate in the Four Nations. They're not even confirmed to be participating in the Olympics next year. This would be brand new, kind of like the Summit Series. There are other political factors for it, of course. Bettman, though, today caught off guard. He's like, I didn't know nothing about this. I did not expect this at all. The idea that they would line up and play each other. And obviously his league would have to be involved and sign off on it because those are the players that they're going to want to use if this thing ever becomes a reality. I kind of believe it's just talk, though, at this point, but you never know, right? So there's that. Speaking of international games, this is the thing I really wanted to get to because I'm all about international hockey and I want to see the best games possible and I don't want to see the NHL go back to an all-star game. And I was very happy to hear Bettman today say that he does not want to commit to an all-star game in 2026, despite the fact that the league already awarded the all-star game in 2026 to the New York Islanders. But what Bettman did say is even if they don't do an all-star game, he committed to having some sort of event that the New York Islanders will host. And very quickly, my bells are going off like, all right, give me international games because next year, that is going to happen right before the Olympics. And to me, it makes total sense that you just have an exhibition international game or games before the Olympics, kind of a preseason for the teams that are going over. And you have the Islanders host it. You could call it the Four Nations again if you really want. Instead of, though, a full tournament, maybe this time you have a game for each team. And you have a USA-Canada game and a Sweden-Finland game. I don't even know if you need the Sweden-Finland game. Just give me USA-Canada. Give me a USA-Canada showcase game hosted by the New York Islanders before both teams go over to play in the Olympics. To me, that is a no-brainer. It'll be 10 times better than an all-star game, and you'll get all your all-stars. Because USA and Canada is most of your all-star players. Most, I know not all, but most. That is an easy decision to me that the NHL should make in the coming days and weeks. And maybe they are on their way to. Bettman may be indicating that today. So got a couple of interesting things, whether it's the USA-Russia thing, whether it's New Orleans, whether it is no all-star game going forward. All really juicy stuff that we heard from the commissioner and around the commissioner today. When we come back, I want to get to a potential controversy in hockey that could come up in the next month and our Sabre-themed bracket for tournament time here in the month of March and into April. That's coming up here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Game Time. There is nothing like watching live basketball, the energy of the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. There was one of those recently, though, that maybe wouldn't have been the most fun to see live. But anyways, if you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. And there's a lot of these games in the tournament that are going to be driving distance coming up. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff, shows you only the best deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands and thousands of tickets. I check out the Game Time app before any game, walking down to the arena sometimes before I even have tickets, approaching game time. No pun intended there or pun intended. I can just get them right before I get in, get them right away. You walk in, you get the best deals that way. Instead of, looking around at 1,000 different tickets, they've got their super deals that are highlighted, which gives you the best bang for your buck right there. Seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is also presented by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, for me, it's golf. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and you can even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are getting into that time of year where the season's winding down and we have this goal chase going on right now in DC with Alex Ovechkin. 8 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record, the most goals of all time. It is going to be one of the greatest moments in hockey history, mostly because it's a record that's going to get broken that nobody thought was going to get broken until 5 years ago is when it really first started coming up. That's at least when I started first thinking about it. And maybe it's been more like 2 years since we really thought, okay, yeah, this is definitely going to happen. But for decades, Gretzky's records, all of them, have seemed untouchable. And to be fair, 90% of Gretzky's records are untouchable. No one will ever break his single season records. No one will ever break his all-time points record. No one will ever break his all-time assist record. There are other records that are unbreakable, but goals is now going to happen when we thought it wasn't. And if you watch enough hockey, even a little bit, you know about challenges and the way that they operate in the league and how it could really take away from an elite moment, one like Ovechkin breaking Gretzky's record. We actually saw recently an example of this. Nathan MacKinnon last week scores his 1,000th point, and it gets challenged and overturned. After all the Avalanche players empty the bench to go celebrate with Nathan MacKinnon, that happened. Completely and utterly ruined the moment and watered down the actual moment where he did break it, the next period. Watered it down. And I think the way the league is operating, they are allowing for the possibility that this is going to happen to Ovechkin, one of their greatest moments in league history. Colin Campbell speaking to Chris Johnston today of Sportsnet, or of The Athletic, about this and the idea that Ovechkin's goal could be challenged. And Colin Campbell, who is supposed to be this tough-nosed, leader of the NHL in his role, just like this is nothing different. We're not treating it any more special. It's just, we're going to go about our business. And he actually confirmed that any festivities that they're going to have for this goal, which, what are they going to have? Confetti? Are they? Gretzky, to me, is definitely going to be out there on the ice. They're going to bring Gretzky out on the ice with like a passage of the torch type thing. I think that happened with Gordie Howe, decades and decades ago. So that's going to happen. All of that is going to be put on pause until we get confirmation from the visiting coach or the opponent coach that he's not going to challenge it. That, to me, it could really ruin the moment. It could have us sitting there waiting. He scores the goal. Okay, well, let's see. Was there an offside? Was anyone touching the goaltender? And then if it is challenged, imagine that. Waiting around for the challenge, especially if it gets overturned, even worse. But a delay of the moment will kind of kill it. And I think there are times where sports need to understand the moment they're in, and they need to not take it as seriously. Bender rule, here and there, bend in ideology. I think this happens in baseball a lot. Last year, Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, had a pitcher going for a perfect game, and he pulled him because he was sticking with his pre-pitch pitch count plan, and he didn't want the moment to come in over top of the plan. But sometimes just let the moment happen. And in that case, obviously that would have been an all-time moment, a perfect game. You remember forever. Ovechkin's moment is going to be one of the greatest moments in hockey history. Let the moment breathe. Don't take yourself so seriously. Now, that could differ depending on who the opponent is and who the coach is on the other side, right? If it's not going to happen to the Sabres because they play too close together, but if the Sabres, if I were the Sabres coach, if I were Lindy Ruff and Ovechkin scored the goal against me, and I thought there was like a ticky-tack potential goaltender interference call on it, I would want to understand the moment. I would want to know what my responsibility is to the game, to the sport, and know also where my place in the standings is. If I'm the Sabres, I'm not really playing for anything right now. I'm going to do the for the better good of the sport and the league. I'm going to let that happen, and I'm not going to challenge it. I'm going to tell the refs immediately. Let them go. I'm not challenging nothing. If the Capitals play somebody that's fighting for a playoff spot, then that might get a little trickier. I might tell you that I, as that coach, would want to not challenge it, but it might be tough, and you have a job on the line. You know, they have 2 games against Columbus, games 79 and 80, and Columbus is trying to make the playoffs. And I would understand if you're the Columbus coach, why, if it happens to you, you might say, I got to challenge it. You know, it might be a 1-1 hockey game, and I'm trying to make the playoffs here, and that's probably getting overturned. So I got to do it. I'm sorry, but I got to do it. And I think that's more defendable. And I guess that's where there's not much you can really do. But I think it should be treated different. And there should be circumstances and context that could allow for a coach or the league itself not reviewing it because we're going to let the moment go. Sabres or Islanders or Blackhawks, these are all teams that the Capitals play down the stretch. Chicago, you don't need to challenge this. You don't need to challenge it. No, do your job. And to me, from Colin Campbell's point, if I were Colin Campbell, I'd want to get on the phone with those teams before the game. I'd want to talk to the Chicago coach. Be like, buddy, you're in 31st place. Make sure you don't challenge it if it happens. Lindy, make sure you don't challenge it. If you're the Islanders in game 81, hey, dude, like, you're 10 points out of the playoffs. It's already over. Let it go. Certain teams I would do that with if I were Colin Campbell. And it sounds like he's not doing that. So I hope we don't get the moment ruined. And it's something I'm very worried about right now because I've been very excited for this. And I hope it doesn't happen. I'm actually kind of rooting for it to be an empty netter now. Think of it that way. Goal from your own end. Think of it, if Ovechkin scored an empty netter from his own end, you can't have an offside challenge because he never went in the zone, and you can't have goaltender interference because there's no goalie in the net. So I might just take that at this point. Give me an empty netter and no potential for the moment to be ruined by an offside review or a goalie interference review. Otherwise, I'm not usually anti-review at all. I'm usually pro-review. In this instance, though, I'm get it out unless it's absolutely necessary for a team that needs to make the playoffs. And by the way, actually, you look at it from game 70. They don't play many teams like this. From game 75 on, Carolina clinched. Blackhawks out of it. Islanders out of it. Carolina basically clinched. Columbus twice. Islanders out of it. Pittsburgh out of it. The only 2 games I would really be worried about, I guess, for this is Columbus. Columbus, I would be worried about it. Or some coach going rogue. All right, when we come back, our Sabres, our Locked On Sabres bracket for the next month. We'll let you know the theme of it, how to vote, and we'll run through it a little bit. Coming back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent all across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with your marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you, delivering incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's Upwork.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. All right, let's have some fun. It's tournament time. Everyone's got their own bracket. Everyone's got something, right? Whether it's a Buffalo-themed bracket or it's something, with the NHL, everyone's got one. So let's introduce our Locked On Sabres bracket for 2025. This year's theme is going to be just straight up, who's your favorite Sabre? The Fav Sabe Bracket. Favorite Sabre of all time. Going to try to find out who's the most popular Sabre of all time. Not who the best is, who's the most popular Sabre of all time. The fan favorite that everyone agrees on, or the most people, I should say, agree on. So this is the bracket. If you're watching along on YouTube, you could see it there. I'll read through it as well, and you'll see it on Twitter coming up. We'll have polls. We'll have votes, of course. And if you've got this bracket does not go up, I'm going to put it in coinciding with the actual tournament. So, that doesn't get rolling until Thursday. So tomorrow, this will not get going until tomorrow. So if you've got a strong take on someone that shouldn't be on this bracket or somebody that was omitted from this bracket, then feel free to reach out and we'll put it into consideration, maybe even put that to a vote, at least through our texters, and figure out if we should make any changes. But Gilbert Perreault, Dominik Hasek as the number one seeds. It was really tough, and I think this is going to be tough. That's why it's leaving it as open-ended as possible. Choose from one. Choose one of the two. You can only pick one. And kind of leave that up to the fans and the listeners because, of course, it's going to be impossible to compare Gilbert Perreault to Rasmus Dahlin or whoever because, but that's up to you. How do you want to take it? Who did you have more fun watching? If you didn't watch Gilbert Perreault, though, and if you're my age and you don't remember anything pre-1999, 2000, then you might be more willing to vote for the new age guys. So I tried to put more modern players in there, 2000 on, while also respecting those that are in the rafters. So Perreault, Martin, Robert, Danny Briere, the guys that are up there in the rafters. I wanted to make sure that they were represented. LaFontaine, of course, going back to the 90s at least, and then a little bit into the 80s. So a lot of 05-06 guys. Ryan Miller, of course, Chris Drury, Danny Briere, Brian Campbell and Derek Roy, by the way, just kind of randomized the seating after I put them into tiers. And Campbell and Roy, for instance, that's a matchup. Who's your favorite? You can only choose one. And you decide how you want to vote on that. Who you liked watching more, who you just like personally more. That's up to you. But I'm trying to find out from this bracket here in the next month, who is the most popular Sabre of all time? Who's the most well-liked Sabre of all time? And we'll figure out what kind of answer that we get to. Again, if you got a strong conviction, though, one way or another, a guy that wasn't in, let me know what you think. So 1 to 16 seeds. We'll do that as well. And again, it'll kind of be by what the tournament does. So tomorrow in the NCAA tournament, you'll have the 8 versus the 9 to kick things off. So we'll have the 8 versus the 9. Rasmus Dahlin against Max Finneganov. That's the 8 versus 9 matchup in our bracket. That'll be the first matchup. And then the next game in the NCAA tournament is the 4 versus the 13, for instance. So the 4 versus the 13 over here, Danny Briere against Alex Ovechkin. Who do you like? Who pick one of the two, and then we'll roll with it. So we'll have some bracket fun. I, of course, will admit my bias up front. I am not going to do anything sneaky to, have the results go one way or the other. And I did make him a 9 seed, but I personally would vote for Max Finneganov over anybody because he was my favorite player growing up. And he would be my vote. So like a Finneganov versus Dahlin, I'd vote a Finneganov. Not that I don't like Dahlin at all, but it's going to be a tough bracket because you got to pick one of the two. And a lot of these guys are going to be well liked. By the way, if you're wondering, one texter did ask, no Eichel in this tournament. I didn't put Eichel in the tournament because I knew he wouldn't win. I'm not trying to make a statement or make a hot take by not putting him in there. I don't mind Eichel. I'm definitely on the more positive end of the spectrum for most Sabre fans, I would think. But I know he's not going to win. So what's the point of putting him in there? So that's what you got. All right. Tomorrow is a game day, and we'll start running our bracket. We'll talk about Utah, what their new team name options are, the matchup itself, where they are in their build, and we'll get to some more Sabre-specific stuff because the lineup's going to be really interesting tomorrow, and also what they're going to do roster-wise down the stretch here. Tomorrow, I want to get a little bit into Isak Rozan and using him as the face of what they're going to do from here to the end of the season with the Amherst in mind when it comes to who plays for the Sabres. So that'll be tomorrow as well. We'll talk to you then here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If your second listen should definitely be Locked On NHL, all the league-wide news today especially. Bring you daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage that you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.